Tonight, immigration, health and childcare. A day of big promises and big money on the election campaign. A narrow escape for a driver as a car bursts into flames at a service station. Religious hate crime. A deadly shooting at a US synagogue linked to the Christchurch massacre. And victory for the Knights.
Yes, oh, he's got the hattie. He extends the arms and plants the ball down.
Newcastle downs Parramatta in front of a home crowd.
This is NBN News with Jane Goldsmith.
Good evening. Bill Shorten has begun his big sell, rolling out billions of dollars in promises to working families and seniors. But when it comes to how much tax he'll raise to pay for those promises, the opposition leader says he's not ready to answer that just yet. And that's leaving Labor wide open to a government assault.
Another Sunday, another round of rallies for the party faithful. And another stage invasion by an anti-coal crusader. As the Prime Minister returned to his plan to cap immigration at 160,000 and limit the refugee intake to 19,000 a year.
You run it too hot, you put all of that at risk.
And Bill Shorten made another multi-billion-dollar promise.
To make sure that we spend more money helping people with the cost of childcare.
Labor is pledging $4 billion to cut childcare costs for nearly 1 million families. Those households on less than $174,000 a year will be $26 a week better off for each child under 5. Most on less than $69,000 will get free childcare, saving $45 a week per child.
Why won't childcare providers just whack up their fees?
We will look at introducing price controls, like we do for private health insurers.
The combination of wage rises and price caps could send childcare centres broke.
It's a magic pudding equation.
Unless your answer is to spend even more government money. Another $500 million was pledged to lift the wages of early childhood educators over 4 years, with the aim of a 20% pay rise over a decade.
By around $11,300 on top of any increase in the award rate.
By then, the cost to the budget will be a staggering $10 billion. Then another $2.5 billion was pledged to buy $1,000 worth of dental care every 2 years for older Australians.
To cover the dental care of 3 million pensioners and seniors.
And so far, Labor refuses to say how much more it's raising in taxes over the next decade to pay for all these promises.
The government says $387 billion. What's your figure?
Well, we'll release our figures before the election's concluded.
Which leaves the opposition leader wide open to a government assault on his big taxing, big spending plans.
Bill Shorten doesn't know the cost of anything, and I'll tell you why. Because he doesn't pay for it, you do.
Bill Shorten believes the majority will back him. We'll know if he's right in 20 days.
A teenager has opened fire in a US synagogue, killing one person in another targeted attack on a place of worship. Authorities have since uncovered a disturbing manifesto left by the suspect, which bears eerie similarities to the one made by the Christchurch attacker.
More than 100 people had gathered on this, one of the holiest Jewish celebrations of the year. He managed to get off at least a dozen shots before he was taken on by members of the congregation. He shot 4 people and 1 woman died from her wounds.
It was like bang, 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 and then yelling, and then another bang, 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 bang.
The shooter then ran for it. Outside, alerted by the shooting, an armed off-duty border agent saw him and shot and hit his car. Soon after, authorities got a call. It was the 19-year-old saying he would surrender.
Suspect pulled over, jumped out of his car with his hands up, and was immediately taken into custody.
I want you to know, this is not Poway. The Poway I know comes together as we did just a few weeks ago at an interfaith event. We always walk with our arms around each other, and we will walk through this tragedy with our arms around each other.
This happened 6 months to the day that another shooter went into a synagogue in Pittsburgh and killed 11 people. The 19-year-old this time is John Ernest, and authorities have discovered many of his online hate-filled media posts. And the format of the manifesto, questions and answers, is the same as that used by the terrorist who attacked the 2 mosques in New Zealand.
At this moment, it looks like a hate crime, but my deepest sympathies to all of those affected, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
In Los Angeles, Robert Penfold, NBN News.
Meanwhile, President Trump has told the National Rifle Association he's pulling the United States out of an international weapons agreement. The arms trade treaty signed by Barack Obama in 2013 regulates the sale of weapons between countries. Mr. Trump's move has been met with condemnation from human rights groups. The Archbishop of Colombo has held a televised mass with Sunday services at churches across Sri Lanka cancelled after the terror attacks. 1 week on, the Cardinal delivered a homily inside a tightly guarded chapel at the residence, calling the bombings an assault to humanity. Meanwhile, the grim clean-up inside the decimated churches and hotels has begun. The One Nation Party rolled into Hexham today to launch Dr. Barry Reid's Senate campaign. Joined by Mark Latham, the Newcastle surgeon unveiled his plans for public life to a small gathering of party members.
At Hexham Bowling Club for one afternoon only. One Nation with special guest Mark Latham and one of the best Johnny Cash performers going around. The occasion, the campaign launch for Newcastle surgeon Dr. Barry Reid, the party's Lake Macquarie-based Senate hopeful.
I'm looking for truth and honesty and actually looking after ordinary people, and that's the reason why I kept going back to Paul Hanson's One Nation.
He's not what many would consider the stereotypical One Nation candidate. A maxillofacial surgeon, honorary lecturer at the University of Newcastle and Air Force reservist. Qualifications the party's lapping up.
I mean, what a contributor he'd be in the Parliament to have that experience with the health system, to have served in the military effort with such distinction. I just think that'd be a tremendous asset for the Parliament and the people of this region.
It was a modest launch attended by just 50 party faithful, each with their own election agenda.
There's a massive crime wave in this country and nobody seems to be addressing that.
But Dr. Reid says his ticket is about quality of life.
I think cutting living costs, power bills, then local issues like the Williamtown contamination. The fact is that they're talking about it, but it's all talk, no action.
And with just 3 weeks to go, there's plenty of talk ahead. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
It may have been the final day of the school holidays, but a record number of people will be taking home a memory of the Hunter Valley. The wine country has seen a 20% increase compared to 2015, the last time Easter and Anzac Day fell during the same fortnight.
A stunning autumn morning in the Hunter Valley, cellar doors and cafes filling fast. It may be the final day of holidays, but the crowds haven't slowed. In fact, with Easter and Anzac Day so close, it's been non-stop for 2 weeks.
It's far outweighed what our expectations were.
Benin in Port was brimming with visitors.
To the tune of about 1,500 to 2,000 per day over the last 10-day period.
Some operators have experienced upwards of 15% increase in cellar door sales, and the accommodation sector have given us reports of an increase of about 18%.
Hunter Resort was without a vacancy.
It's just been phenomenal. The business has been really good. Restaurants gone well. Our segways and horse riding.
The Bonanza holiday contributing to a bigger picture.
The wine tourism industry contributes over $500 million annually to our local economy and supports over 3,000 jobs.
Along with the increase in tourist numbers, there's also been a change in the demographic of visitors, with many opting to stay longer than just a weekend away.
We're seeing an increase in the younger 25 to 35-year-olds, giving us the opportunity to educate them in wine and food. We're also experiencing families who are travelling with their children, still wanting that premier wine and food experience.
A change some say comes from a recent tourism push helped by Destination New South Wales.
We got a lot of hits to our website, a lot of inquiries.
Georgia Mar, NBN News.
Hundreds of homes were without power for part of the day following a crash at Adamstown Heights this morning. The car slammed into a power pole on Runker Road at about 8:30 a.m. Police say both the driver and a passenger then fled the scene. They were arrested around an hour later and were taken to hospital. The Young Endeavour has set sail from Newcastle Harbour to spend the night at Shoal Bay, the first stopover on its 11-day passage to Brisbane.
We'll do what's called the first climb, so we get the youth crew all through up the top of the foremast, get them a bit of confidence before we go out to start our passage north and when the ship's sort of rolling a bit.
Crews spent the morning conducting training exercises on maintenance before 24 young adventurers boarded for the voyage north. Still to come, the moment a car explodes into flames at a Sydney service station with the driver still inside.